Market on Close. I'm Marley Caden. Tomorrow will be Apple's signature event where it will unveil its latest iPhone, and investors are eagerly awaiting updates to its AI offerings. Joining us to preview the event is Ross Gerber, the president and CEO of Gerber Kawasaki Wealth Investment Management Group. Now, Ross, thank you for being with us today. You know, we have our awe-dropping event tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific. What are your expectations for the event, and will it be awe-dropping?
You know, there hasn't been an awe-dropping event in Apple, it seems like, in a decade. So if I fall asleep in this event, I'm going to be very upset because, you know, they really just have these incremental changes to their products, and I don't think it's worthy of an event. So we're hoping that something really cool might come out of this event. And, you know, people are speculating about a thin iPhone and such, but, you know, it's really hard to predict what they're going to do.
Is a thin iPhone cool enough, though, to warrant all of this bold branding that they've done for this event and calling it awe-dropping? I mean, they've had all of these iterative, seemingly repetitive product updates that, like you just said, you know, none of us are really inspired anymore.
Right. And I think the real issue obviously I haven't seen the product or used it to criticize it yet, but the main thing that people want out of an iPhone is batteries that actually work for more than a day. And I think if they could just make a phone with a great battery, people would go crazy and upgrade their phone. So I don't know if a thinner phone is going to solve that problem. It might make it much worse and have lower battery life, which I don't think is a good product. And so, you know, battery life is something that they need to really consider in another iPhone type product. Secondly, a thinner product could also break easier and not be easy to hold. So I don't know if this changes anything for Apple. I don't know if it's awe-dropping. Maybe it's way better than I expect, and I hope it is because I'm an Apple shareholder.
I'm an Apple user with battery issues, so I'm with you in hopes that we have some
sort of literally everybody is.
Improvement in battery life. I'd love to not have to set it down on the charger 3 times a day, but here we are. How important do you think is announcing some new AI-driven features to counter these perceptions that we continue to hear of Apple being stagnant in the AI race?
Yeah, and it's funny because my iPhone Apple Intelligence just popped up and started like asking if I wanted to call this person. I don't even know who it was. And I was like, this is like Apple unintelligence at this point. And so I think that Apple doesn't have anything in AI, and the best thing they can do is announce a partnership with Google. And if they can incorporate Gemini natively into the iOS application, I think that's a great step in the right direction for Apple. Right now, Apple's sort of cozied up with OpenAI with an integration through Apple Intelligence into ChatGPT. So, I think this is, with the antitrust suit ending for Google, an opportunity for Google to take over the Apple AI business. And I think that's what's going to happen.
And you just mentioned a big one here. You know, Apple struggled to keep pace with the Mag 7, posting a year-to-date loss, about 5%, second worst performer, only behind Tesla, which I know you like to talk about and we'll get to in a second. But with that antitrust ruling, just in the past month, the shares have surged. And now we have the potential for this improved relationship without the overhang of the DOJ. Do you think that there is actual potential of that partnership being announced tomorrow, or is that its own separate event?
Well, I don't think they knew what they could do until this legal overhang was gone. So, I'm sure they want to announce something because they certainly want some juice in the stock and people to see the future that Apple's trying to build, because we're not giving up our Apple devices. So we want them to work better and have AI integration, especially natively. We should be able to run AI on the iPhone without having to be connected to the internet, which would be really, really powerful, device. And so, I think if you want to have an awe-inspiring event, announcing an AI partnership with Google and this new product is definitely a step in the right direction, but it still goes back into, this is a very competitive race, and Apple has the position of being the hardware king. It's the consumer device we all use, but things can change very quickly with things like the development of glasses that Meta's developing that could also be a very interesting counterweight to using a phone all the time. So Apple's core business is at threat, and they need to innovate.
And, overall, not knowing what's coming out tomorrow, but just long-term outlook on Apple.
Well, I've owned Apple my whole life, and I was just recently quoted saying it's really dumb to sell Apple. And I agree with that. I think Apple, for good or for bad, is one of the best companies in the world. They continue to be so shareholder friendly. They continue to have a monopoly on the best computing and mobility products out there. Their services business is second to none, and the ecosystem is safe to use and hack free for the most part. So it's really hard to imagine anybody else taking Apple's position in the future. And our kids are all using Apple devices, and I literally have to pry the iPads out of my kids' hands with tears in their eyes. They love these things so much. So I just don't see a future without Apple being a core player.
That is not a unique journey. My household also has the same iPad struggle every day, if it makes you feel any better, Ross.
No, I know. We all have this, right?
It's constant.
Like ripping their lung out when you take the iPad away.
Taking their best friend away. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about Tesla and the news that came out today, just that they're seeing their EV market share in the U.S. fall below 40% for the first time in 8 years. Is this cause for concern, or did we sort of already know this?
Well, I mean, I've been concerned for 3 years about the fact that people don't want to buy Tesla products because of this CEO, Elon Musk, being so divisive. And this has come to roost. I mean, I'm not surprised at all. And you got real competition out there, and you got people who Tesla does make the best products still, but people have to buy it holding their nose because they just don't want any affiliation with Elon Musk. And it's really sad, too, because we're ending the EV tax credit. It's just a horrible crime that it's ending, and it was perpetuated by Elon Musk and his support for Donald Trump. And this is a big step in the wrong direction for climate change and for our environment. And EVs are better cars. And so this is the last chance to buy an EV. So by the way, if you're looking for a car, now is the best time ever to buy an EV, and certainly to buy a Tesla. So, I highly recommend EVs, and you have a better vehicle, and you're making a much better impact on the environment. So I think Tesla's got a lot of issues, and I'm not really a big believer in the robotic future that they're painting. So I don't need a robot to water my plants.
Well, Ross, we appreciate you being with us to talk Apple, their potentially awe-dropping event, and Tesla today. That's Ross Gerber from Gerber Kawasaki Wealth Investment Management.